So the funny thing about my dog is yeah. I think the big thing about like decent poker player, I mean like the game that the esports game where people are willing to throw money around is that like they have an intent in the game plan, like, and like they have an intent that can be traced by logic. I think the biggest part actually, if we're going to talk about like game theory and like being like good at a game, is like understanding intent on plays. And I think one of the biggest issues a lot of players have is that they play without intent. So I don't know, with Smash it's like, oh, why did you do that, Nair? It's like, oh, I don't know, I just felt like it, right? That's like a very melee specific scenario that happens a lot. It's like, oh, like just felt it might have been good, even when like it's just an objectively bad Nair. And one of the things that will instantly make you a better player or like a better video gamer in like any kind of game is like understanding, like asking yourself like, what is the intent of what you're doing? And if you don't have an answer, then what you're doing could be grounded in intuition. Don't get me wrong, there are players that don't know what they're doing and they play well because they have natural intuition for the game that they can't explain. But I am willing to bet that a lot of people aren't like that and they play with no intent. And so everything is random, it's not consistent. And so like if you can get to a place where like even like a board game like Catan, like, right, what is the intent of your actions? Like, what are you doing next? Why are you doing it next? And if you can answer those questions and go like, I'm doing this play because of X, like you will instantly become a better, you know, gamer, strategist, you know, whatever have you. Oh wait, I'm doing the... I have to do Tetris's only. Might be. Alright, I will do Tetris's only. So, or actually in like poker, a lot of it is like, why'd you raise there? It's like, what's your plan? Or like, what's your intent? Or like, why'd you bet the flop, right? And there's like a connectedness to like all the action you do in like a hand. And if you're raising the, like, making a play like earlier in the hand, and you're just like, oh, I'm just doing it to feel good without consideration on like how this affects the turn of the river, like, then like you're missing out on a lot of the core gameplay of like poker. I think the other part is understanding connectedness. So this is, I don't really know how to like explain this concept. It's like watching your it's the fine balance between tactical, like where game tactics and game strategy come together. And TFT could be the transition point in the game, right, where you're making the best possible play for the given round, but balancing out, like, by making a play that benefits you the most for like one, you know, spot in the game, does it help your overall way of winning, right? So in TFT, you could sacrifice a lot of gold to get an upgrade, but it sacrifices your econ, and then you're kind of screwed in the flow of the game on like what to do next, or like it affects the future of the units you can get, you know, the gold you can spend and all that fun stuff. And so like, how do you balance like spending gold on units versus, you know, conserving and making those decisions? And I think that's like one of the hardest things to teach is like, how do you balance tactical gameplay with like an overarching strategy? Viscant. Doesn't Viscant live in San Diego? I used to actually read his poker blogs. He was a low/micro stakes grinder. He did make a decent, you know, profit. If I remember correctly, he made decent money back in the poker boom. But he was playing fairly low stakes and grinding out things. Yeah, but it was like probably the safest option for him. He was a winning player though, if I remember correctly. Poker's evolved a lot though, and I think the best way I could say it is like the old school style of playing poker of like, oh, I think you have this exact hand, so therefore it's gonna be like a Hollywood play or soul read on like, oh, you must have pocket aces here. I think the big difference now is that people, you know, play with ranges in mind and mixing up ranges. So like the one thing that we do, and it's like a very fighting game-esque thing, right, is a fighting game concept of balancing your range. So there's a lot of work being done in like making sure that you can find exploitable spots on your opponent based on like their hand ranges and what they're willing to do in certain situations with certain types of hands, and being able to identify like where those spots are, right? And you can use like, and this is where like the game becomes extremely math driven, and the quote-unquote nerds are the ones that are killing high stakes poker. It's those people that are running these simulations nonstop to understand like the math and science of board textures with hand ranges, and understanding, you know, optimal spots that are killing the game. The old school players like the Dano Negreanu's or like Dano Negreanu does like do, you know, modern research and he's adapting his game to modern times, but a lot of the pros that you used to watch on TV are like severely getting destroyed in modern poker games because the game has just evolved so much. You have to like add in like random hands to like your river raises just because good keen players can put you on certain ranges there, and then they'll never give you the value that you want from certain spots. TLDR, it's really hard to win in poker now, is the short explanation I have. It's a nerd's game, and people who haven't adapted to like studying the game with simulators and stuff aren't winning anymore. A lot of the old winners are like broke. Ooh, I got badges. Oh, I guess the best way I could describe like old school poker is that you could exploit people. Like players are character, like especially at low stakes, players are caricatures, right? There's like the super tight player or the really loose player or the person that calls too much, right? And they usually have like one definable weakness, as if they're like a Mega Man boss.